It's Monday live at lunch, which means only one thing, that we are talking all things food freedom. And today, I can't wait to share this training with you. I'm sorry I'm starting a bit late. I was actually putting some slides together for this training today, which I can't wait to do. And it's all about how to prevent a big old nasty relapse. Or relapse if you're in recovery terms, but maybe if you're just a general everyday overeater, we just don't want a little slip to turn into a nasty bingy blowout. Sometimes we do one bad thing and 5 days later we're emerging from the crisp packets and trying to recalibrate and get ourselves back on track. Now, if you want to experience real food freedom in your life, you want to be able to get to a point where there's no more compulsion, there's no more urges, you just want to eat when you're hungry, stop when you're full, and not be thinking about it all the time, not be managing it all the time, then in order to get there, there's going to be a bunch of bumps along the way. And the danger is that sometimes these bumps can turn into 5-day frenzies, feeding frenzies. And so that sounds familiar. Oftentimes after a weekend, you might have had a really bad day on a Sunday where it feels like all of your good work is undone. And the worst thing we can do is fall off the horse quickly on Monday or not get back on it at all. So I really want to give you this training today so that if you're feeling like you're never going to make it, you're always going to struggle, every Sunday it ends up the same way, or you're busy, you've had days or weeks of just feeling completely out of control, then let's start to do the work to turn this ship around, shall we? So that a slip up doesn't turn into a 5-day feeding frenzy. If you've just joined me or discovered me on the YouTubes, my name is Helen Bennett. I used to struggle with out of control eating. I actually had chronic bulimia for 20 years. So I was binge eating and then finding ways to compensate for all the damage that I'd done. And it was, I make it sound very, I sound very relaxed talking about it now, but to be honest, I still struggle to talk about it. And it really was a chronic 20-year, I don't want to swear, but it was a horrific 20-year period of my life, which I wouldn't wish on anybody and wouldn't choose in any way, shape, or form to go back and have to live through again. And I share that with you purely so that you know that I really understand how hard it is when you're facing these overwhelming compulsions and urges to overeat, to get through them. So I understand that when you've been doing well, maybe you've had a few days where you felt like you're eating really well and things were feeling great, and then those urges come back and you give into one of them, or you just have like a snack accident and it happens accidentally, and you catch yourself, and more often than not, that can lead to 3 or 4 day blowout. And we really want to prevent that, because we need you to get back on the horse, doing all the good stuff and moving the needle forward in the direction of food freedom. Now, it's really important to say up front that if you are choosing to pursue another diet or another mechanism of control in order to try and achieve freedom, which is the very opposite of freedom, isn't it? Why would we choose to do something that is the opposite of what the outcome that we really want? It's like trying to hate yourself into self-love. It wouldn't work, right? And yet that was what I did multiple times. I kept thinking, if I can just try harder, if I can just restrict harder and be more in control, then I will somehow break free. But one of the biggest ahas I had was around the fact that I was trying to do the very thing that was in antithesis to the goal I was seeking. And I had to start doing things differently. Now, if you want to get the right strategy so that you can pick up from a little bit of a slip up or a nasty bingy blowout and keep moving forward in the direction of your dreams, and you want a strategy that actually works, given that diets are not the strategy that works for freedom, and you want to have a completely free relationship with food, then go to my website, foodfreedomfoundations.com. I've just released a brand new webinar where I go through the entire strategy from start to finish that will actually help you move the needle in the right direction. So what we're going to talk today is just a piece of that journey. It's how to navigate all the slip-ups along the way while you're implementing the right strategy. Because let's be honest, if you're implementing the wrong strategy, no amount of getting up and starting again is going to work, because you're flying east looking for a sunset. You know what I mean? Like, we've got to be doing the strategy that will actually get us in the direction of our dreams. We have to be learning the right skills and drills. You can't learn swimming if you want to be a runner or I don't know, CrossFitter. Well, you could, no, bad example, terrible example. But you know what I mean? Like, you actually need to be learning the right skills and drills if you want to become proficient at anything. So make sure that you have the right strategy, because there's no point in getting back on the horse if you're getting on the horse that's going in the wrong direction. Okay, that was a better analogy. All right, so let's dive in. Let me pull up some slides, because what we're going to talk about today is how to fail forward, how to navigate all your slips and setbacks and actually fail forward and ideally upward. That would be great, right? So first things first, I had to learn a hard lesson, which is that you're going to fail. You're going to fail multiple times on this journey of food freedom. And it's this crying shame that it's necessary, but it is. And here's why. So let's dive into the 2 reasons why. Number 1, you can't quit cold turkey. We all know this, right? You can't just stop eating. I'm sure many people have tried, and I know many people, and I was one of them. A lot of people reach out to me and say, I just wish I didn't have to eat, because eating itself can be so triggering into the overeating. Eating itself can trigger the habit of overeating. And I know that every time I ate, I was like navigating a minefield of triggers and urges. And I think a lot of you watching will be feeling the same. Speaking of which, if you get value out of this training today, please, por favor, smash the like button so that this training can get out to other people who are also struggling. And they're probably just like you, silently feeling horribly trapped. And if you watch this and you love it and you get a bit of something from it, and I think you will, so please just smash the like button so that other people can find this too. And even better yet, you can comment. And if you're watching live at any time, you join me today or any other day of the week, any other Monday, please comment, and I will happily respond live. This is the joy of doing it live, right? You can hear my mind spinning today. I've got so much going on in my head. Okay, so first thing is you can't quit cold turkey, which means, there's probably going to be lots of butting up against all the things that we have to work on to get through the behavior. We can't just lock ourselves in a room, go through a withdrawal and get to the other side. We can't actually never have our behavior or our substance of choice again. This is the funny thing about this compulsive, out of control, impulsive overeating, is it's not just about the food. It isn't just a substance addiction, and it isn't just a behavior addiction or compulsion. It is a combination of both. It's the substance that can give us pleasure, but the behavior itself can also give us pleasure and reward and all the things. And that is why it's so challenging. And the worst thing is you just can't create an environment in which it is impossible to create an environment in which you just go completely cold turkey, because you will die. So we have a lot to work. We've got a lot, we're up against it when we're choosing to come out of compulsive overeating. And the way that I work is I really want to teach you how to do this the right way, so you don't have to go through this again, and so that you don't just addiction jump to some new addiction when you finally forced yourself out of a bad relationship with food. I'd much rather we stay in the muck with this, we stay in the suck, we accept that this is going to be challenging, we accept that we go cold turkey, and we use that to help us actually embrace and work with all the things that have been causing the overeating all along. Because what I do as a coach is I specialize in helping people identify what is causing the overeating. Because it ain't just because the food's, engineered to be addictive. It's not that. It's the food that's engineered, yes, to be highly palatable, but in the environment of all these other problems that are really there, these deeper rooted issues. So again, go to the website, grab the masterclass. I go fully into that. But the fact is, because food has become the solution to usually 1 of 5 different deeper problems, and we can't just cut it out. We have no choice but to keep going through and navigating all these tricky situations with food and eating. And because of that, we're likely to slip up along the way. The second reason people slip up is because of what I call the suck. I speak about this in the masterclass. I've spoken about this on Instagram. You can catch me at Coach Helen Bennett. I did a series of 5 hard lessons last week. And the 5th one, I really talk about the suck. And what is the suck? The suck is the dopamine tantrum. So yes, we can all agree that a craving, a non-hunger craving, because of course we want to be meeting your needs to eat. We want to be meeting hunger. But your non-hunger cravings, that's where we're getting in the weeds here. That's the work that we're doing. And sure, we can, absolutely, it's true that a craving is not a command. That's the good news. I mean, for some of us, that was a bit of a head, when I first heard that, I was like, because it's true. A craving can't force us to do the behavior. Just the desire to do it can't actually force us. It can be very compelling, but it can't force us. Thank goodness. Otherwise, we wouldn't be able to change these behaviors. But the problem is, when we have repeated a behavior often enough, that not only is it hardwired as a habit loop, but it's also been paired with a substance or a behavior that made us feel good emotionally or otherwise, or it was a way of getting us away from pain when we were escaping or numbing our pain. Because that behavior that we've done repeatedly also was paired up with a bunch of enjoyment and pleasure and escape and numbing and getting away from pain, it becomes even more difficult to break. And the problem is, what happens is our brain says, oh, this behavior is really important. Not only is she repeating it a lot, therefore it's important, so we must hardwire it, like tying your shoelaces, right? You repeat any behavior often enough, your brain will hardwire it into the nervous system so that you can do it automatically. But not only is it a behavior that repeated a lot, but was paired with this high degree of pleasure or an escape from pain. And because of that, our clever nervous system, it's meant to do this, is that it paired up that behavior with a bunch of dopamine release, so that every time there was a trigger, the dopamine releases and you're motivated to do the behavior. So dopamine is the molecule of more. It's the molecule of motivation, not the molecule of pleasure, but the molecule of motivation. Dopamine begins to scream at you, please, 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 mommy, can we go get that ice cream? Please, please, like nagging kids in the back of the car. Not that I've had them, but I've been one. And they just nag and nag. Those cravings cry and nag. And some days you can ignore them easily enough. But other days, boy, those cravings to eat, even though you're not hungry, can be so loud. And they suck. And you know what? We're human beings. And it's like having nasty itches multiple times a day sometimes for some people. That was my experience. That are so hard to ignore that eventually you just scratch them just so you can be rid of the itch. So it is normal to give into these cravings along this journey. It is hard to resist every single dopamine tantrum that you will ever experience, particularly because you can't go cold turkey with food. So if you've resisted it for a few hours, but then later it's dinner and a little bit of that urge is still there, you might just blow out and overeat because you're exhausted. And you're busy engaging in the substance that can be tricky and in the behavior that's tricky. So be kind to yourself. This is really challenging work, but the good news is it can all be changed, but it's because of these things that we experience lots of failures and slip-ups along the way. So next up, I think I've got my slides wrong. No, that's right. So there's two things. You can't go cold turkey and the dopamine suck. Perfect. Right. So the hard lesson that I had to learn is that you will fail. And I'm somebody who doesn't like failure. I used to be a bit of a perfectionist, definitely a lot better now. I mean, I'm not doing lives if I'm trying to be a perfectionist. I've already made about 20 mistakes on this live. So clearly I've got used to it. But I didn't enjoy failure. I still don't. And the good news is you want to get better at anything, you're going to learn to fail. And you're going to fail multiple times, particularly when it comes to food, for those reasons. But here's the thing. You'll fail until you succeed. You'll fail until you're so good at this that food freedom is the new norm. You'll fail until those urges just aren't there anymore. So that's the good news. And the way to think about this is like food freedom is like learning a language. I've moved to Spain. I'm having to learn Spanish. I'm really struggling with learning Spanish. I don't speak it a lot, but I'm just doing my Duolingo every morning and the occasional chatting, there outside. Now, could I be putting more effort into it? Yes. But I'm not, for multiple reasons. But nonetheless, it is frustrating. And as you learn a new language, there's going to be mistakes. And it's the same with food freedom. You're learning a new language, a way of thinking around food, a way of being around food, emotional regulation around food or not around food. But ultimately, it's going to take time. It's going to take practice. It's going to take reps. It's going to take guidance. It's going to take teachers for most of us. And it's going to take time in the saddle. And because of that with food, there's going to be a lot of slip-ups, a lot of lapses, a lot of snack accidents, a lot of blowouts along the way. We want to minimize those, but we are going to accept that they happen. And that's normal and understandable under the circumstances. But just like learning a language, you're going to become fluent. As long as you keep showing up for the lessons and you're practicing real world. We can't think our way out of this stuff. We have to practice, we have to try and change things. And in time, trust me, in time, and it will feel like this is not true if you're at the beginning of this journey, but in time, it will start to feel really easy and automatic. You won't have to be thinking about not thinking about food. You won't have to be thinking about tummy check-ins and all the things that I teach. It will just be who you are. And a lot of those cravings will disappear. So if you're learning a new language, let's say I moved to Spain and I was living with a Spanish family and I couldn't speak English because nobody spoke English. And I was doing Spanish lessons 5 times a day. And I was practicing. How fast would I become fluent? And I know this because I am an English-speaking South African, but I went to an Afrikaans university for a year. And I'd learned Afrikaans at school, and I think I got like a B grade at Afrikaans. It wasn't great, but I was okay. But I never needed to really speak it. And then I went to an Afrikaans-speaking university. Yes, there were some English speakers there. Yes, I could do exams in English, thank God. But I can tell you what, it was about 4 months in, I started to think in Afrikaans. I'm like, honestly, if you told me that would happen, I wouldn't have believed you because I'd spoken English my whole life. But I remember going home for a holiday and I was starting to think in Afrikaans. And you will start to think in the language of food freedom, and you will also do automatically the actions of food freedom as well. So believe me, you can replace the old language of diets and diet culture and restriction and not enoughness with something new. But it's going to take time and persistence. But there will come a time when this will be so easy and automatic, it'll make your head spin. So think of it like investing in the stock market. There's shakeouts, there's fakeouts, there's big old drawbacks, there's massive recessions that can take years to recover from, but ultimately trajectory up, right? And, at first it can feel like the progress is really hard to see. It feels like nothing's really changing. It doesn't really feel like you're going up much. But over time, you get this beautiful compounding effect. If you can give it the time in the saddle, you've got the right strategy, you're learning the right things. You can't be learning Swahili if you want to speak Spanish. So if you've got the right strategy and you're committed and you're diligent, you will get that compounding return on investment. And food freedom is exactly the same. But the problem is, what we see is that usually people give up quite soon. So you start something new, you found a new therapist, maybe you've invested in working with me, or you're doing the course, the Food Freedom Foundation's course that we'll be releasing shortly. And you think, this is brilliant. I finally found the new thing. But then you have a few slip-ups. You fail a few times and you give up. And we see that so often because this is challenging work, like we've just said. So what we want to do today is talk about how to prevent a slip-up from turning into a slippery slope, and worse, that you just bail and end up looking for some new solution when actually you've got the right solution. You just need to stick in it and play the long game. So here's another hard lesson I want to share with you, which is in the masterclass. The biggest triggers, and this is true of so many things, the biggest triggers aren't out there, they're in here. When I would slip up with food, when I had a big bingey day, it wasn't that I'd had a binge. It was what I thought about it that was the problem. It took me a while to see it. But I bet if you're watching this, you might resonate. How many times have you caught yourself? Maybe you've just overeaten a little bit. You were doing great, and then suddenly you like crossed that line. It's that fuck it moment, you just cross it a little bit. Now you can still pull back and you're still okay. But there's something in your mind that kicks off at that stage, a story that you tell yourself. And often that story can lead to you continuing to eat. And so half the time we're not eating because the compulsion is physical. We're eating because the mental chaos that erupts in our head after we've blown it. How many times have you heard this? Oh, I've eaten one, so I may as well finish the whole thing. Or I've blown it now, so let me just keep going. I may as well continue. Madness, right? But we've all thought those thoughts. So it's the thoughts that end up triggering further trouble. And it's the same with the slip-ups. It wasn't the fact that I'd had one bad day or one bad moment with food. It was the story I was telling myself after that happened. So here we go. Do you recognize these thoughts? I'm back to zero. Classic. I just can't do this. I'm going to fail at this like I failed at everything else. You see, Helen, you're useless, you'll never change, you're broken, this is never going to, you're the exception to the rule, you'll never make it out alive. And I have zero, you see, I've got zero impulse control. Now, remember, our thoughts are self-fulfilling prophecies. So when we think these things, we're more likely to manifest them. But also we feel so much guilt and shame and yuck at our own thoughts that we will often continue to eat just to medicate the thoughts, because it feels better to eat than to think our thoughts. So we're eating to escape the pain of our own negative thinking. All right. So how to bounce back? Step one, let's learn from the slip up. Let's learn. A lot of people they recognize, they come to the place working with me, they're feeling a lot of compassion for themselves, which is great. It's just what we want. We need to be compassionate. There's no point in pulling out the, self-flagellation whip at this stage. Let's be kind with our mind. So step one, let's learn from the slip up. So the problem is often people are kind, but then they want to bounce past it. Oh, it's not a problem, and just move on. No. Let's just pause long enough, be kind, be curious, but let's pause long enough to learn from it. Now, I can't go deeply into that now, but there's a series of things you can ask yourself in those moments that will really help you understand what the hell was going on that made you overeat. I mean, the very least, you can check what the story in your head was that probably tripped you up at that moment. That's a powerful way to start. But there's a few other things you can look into and investigate where you can get some real deep learning from every little slip and every big bingy relapse, right? So don't move on yet. The first thing you want to do is take a moment to pause and recognize what you need to learn. And if you have any trouble with this, reach out to your coach, reach out to your therapist, get some help, because the learning here is key, right? So, this is one of the principles that I live by, really, which is you win or you learn. You don't really fail. You win or you learn. I make a mistake doing YouTube Live. I'm going to learn from it. You can be sure. You can be sure. Stays with us. The second thing, bust the headworms. So there's a lot, headworms. These are all the negative things we think, right? So you saw that slide I take it for granted that everybody knows what I'm talking about. But basically, a headworm are all the thoughts that we think that are not leading us in the direction that we want to be moving. It's the disempowering, self-critical self-talk that is an automated program that most of the time we did not create. We've learned it from somewhere else. And our job is to change that program. Now, of course, I don't necessarily know you, or I'm not working with you right this minute. So I won't know what's going on in your head at that moment that you tip the slip up into the binge. But usually with a client, what we'd do is we'd actually literally write it down so we can find out what are the exact words that you're using in your head. And then we're going to bust those headworms. We're going to change those stories. And oftentimes it's like myth busting. We're literally taking things that aren't true and we realize we're telling ourselves something that's not true, and we change them. But sometimes we need some powerful reframes. So what I want to do for you today is to give you 4 of the most powerful reframes that have served me not just in my journey with recovery from bulimia, but actually in everything, from improving relationships to improving my business, my career, all of it, you name it. These mindset shifts are unbelievably powerful. So regardless of what your headworms specifically are for you, I bet the 4 mindset shifts that I'm about to share with you will deeply serve you. So here we go. Number 1, suffering. Oh, you might want to actually screenshot this or write this down. Suffering occurs when our expectations don't match our reality and we feel powerless to change it. Suffering occurs when our expectations don't match our reality and we feel powerless to do anything about it. So immediately, just quickly write down your expectations. I bet your expectation was that you should be able to stop, or you should be better by now, or this shouldn't be so hard. When we should, in our minds, we are shooting against reality, because the reality is you couldn't stop. You struggled with that one. Here is your reality. I struggle to stop sometimes. In that instance, I wasn't able to stop. Now, I'm very careful of not saying I can't stop, because I bet that's a headwind we could bust, because you could actually look back at, let's say you've just, eaten an entire bar of chocolate. That was your slip up. And you would say to yourself, I can't stop eating. When I start eating chocolate, I can't stop. Well, I bet you there was a time in your life that you did. And as long as there's one time that it's happened, we know that that statement's untrue. So we might change it to sometimes I struggle to stop, or I can't stop yet, or today I wasn't able to stop. That's the reality, right? So let's not box with reality anymore. Let's drop those expectations, just be with reality is. We wanted something more than what we've experienced. Yes, that's true. We wanted to be better by now. We wanted this to be easy. We thought that we should be able to, but the fact is we haven't, and we shouldn't because we didn't, and therefore, and here we are, right? So your truth is that even if you think you should, the truth is you can't yet do exactly what you want to do. Freedom isn't hardwired yet. That's the truth. But the question is, are you powerless to change it? Well, the good news is that I happen to know the answer to that question is no, because I've done this myself and I've worked with hundreds of people, it feels like thousands at this point, and I've seen the changes in real world. I've seen how people go from compulsion to freedom. I see it, but it takes work. But the good news is you can change. Your brain, just like every other human brain out there, is changeable. It's called neuroplasticity. Your brain will rewire. It's guaranteed to rewire. That's how it works, provided you're doing something new repeatedly and that something new is sustainable, unlike a diet, right? So it may feel in that moment that you're powerless. And in that moment, I guess there was a degree of powerlessness because you weren't able to break that habit yet. But even doing this will be a way of learning how to do it differently in the future. But here's the thing. You're not powerless. You have the capacity to change. You haven't changed yet. And we know that because you just slipped up. But you will. And your brain can rewire. And it will rewire. It's just taking longer than you would have expected or hoped. And maybe in some cases, much longer. And that's fair enough. Another powerful reframe. You're not starting from scratch. You slip up. So what? You're not starting from scratch. A lot of people's like, oh, I'm back to day one. I'm back to zero. You're not. You're starting from experience. Whether you've started in this journey and you just, 1 week in, or whether you've been working on your food freedom for months or even years, and you've had a bad day with food, you're hardly starting from scratch as long as you've been doing the work. You're starting again from experience. And this lapse or this slip up on its own is an experience that you can use to learn from and grow from. But like post-game analysis, you're not going to win every match. But if you can take a moment to learn from, watch, look back on the moves you made, etc., you can improve as a team or as a player. It's the same thing here. You're starting again from experience. So another way to think about this, I love this, is like you could come to me and say, Helen, I cannot learn Spanish, as an example. But if you were to go to a Spanish lesson every single day and you were to hang out with Spanish people every single day and speak nothing but Spanish every single day, you're guaranteed to learn Spanish, and food freedom is exactly the same. So I understand mistakes sting and they hurt, and you might feel embarrassed or a little bit, well, you might feel a lot frustrated and disappointed. And I think that's really valid and understandable. Who doesn't when you've been working hard at something? But you know what? When we make a mistake and it stings, it's awesome. If I go out there and speak Spanish and I make a mistake and somebody corrects me, my brain is on high alert for change. I'm not forgetting that mistake again in a hurry if somebody has corrected me, because I feel a bit of embarrassment, a little bit of shock to the system. That's good. Our brain's awake. It's dialed in, ready for something new. Give me the new gameplay. Tell me what to do next. And it will remember it way more powerfully than if we hadn't made the mistake. So mistakes can actually be really powerful, provided we're not shaming ourselves through them. So use the time when like I said, if you don't win, you learn. Use the time to learn. It's now that your brain's frustrated, disappointed, embarrassed, feeling a bit of shame. Awesome. Use that. Use it to your advantage. Leverage it so that you can remind yourself what you need to learn. You can think about how you would do things differently. You can identify what the triggers were and figure out, with probably some help, how you would do it differently in the future and what you really needed if it wasn't food. And you will begin to change. So this is actually the best place for a little bit of neuroplasticity dial-up. You like literally the work you do now will be worth double points, because the pain of the mistake means that you're more open to change. You're more open to rewiring. So let's use the next hour, 2 hours, 24 hours, 3 days to put something new in there. Go over the masterclass, dive into your coursework, double down on your homework, whatever you need to do in order to ensure that this mistake that you've made is something so valuable that you can extract the maximum amount of juice from it and ensure that you don't make it again in a hurry. Also, a big thing here. Please don't do this AA thing of counting days. It's so painful because in the AA world, no disrespect to Alcoholics Anonymous or anything like that, because they're powerful programs. However, because we can't go cold turkey, there are mistakes. And the idea that we're back at zero when we've had one bad day after like 30 great days is so discouraging and so disheartening. And half the time people stay in a bad kind of bingey place just because the thought of getting back on the horse and starting again on zero is so profoundly sad, especially if they've done a week, a month, a year, and then they just have a big binge. No problem. Okay, we're going to learn from it. It just means there's work to do. But if we think we're starting again at zero, it is so demotivating. Who would want to start there? You think, but actually, the reality is all that learning you've just done is still there. You don't unlearn your Spanish just because you've made a mistake. You know what I mean? You didn't unlearn everything overnight. So you're going to just get up and get back out there, start again from experience. So don't day count, because I find that so demotivating. But what I would recommend, if you like counting because it's really motivational, anything that can give us reward and pleasure is really powerful in this journey because the brain will rewire faster. But I would suggest don't day count. But what I would do is maybe do things like, I have clients who put pebbles in jars as an example, or beads or something like that. Because every day you do well, or you might even be at the point where if you can just get through one meal without overeating, or binging, then that's a huge win for you. So absolutely have Post-it notes, have stickers, have beads, have whatever you need to acknowledge that you've just done something that is rewiring your brain. So you might have like a little neuroplasticity jar where every time you go through a meal or a whole day, you have different like small beads for a meal, big beads for a whole day, where you've just eaten beautifully, you've stopped when you're full, you weren't overfull, you didn't overeat or binge. Awesome. Put your pebbles in a jar so over time you can see the progress, because you're going to need it, because there'll be days when you'll feel despair and despondent. There'll be days you made a mistake and you'll want to give up. And actually just looking at that jar can, slowly filling with all its beads and its pebbles or whatever you use, can be unbelievably motivating, because as long as it's there, it means you're changing. If you've got a 500-day streak on Duolingo of learning a language, you are going to be learning that language whether you like it or not. So that brings me on to the next one. Here's a powerful one. I'm working so hard at this that it would be unreasonable to expect that I wouldn't succeed. As I said, if you're learning Spanish and you're there every day doing the homework, it's guaranteed that you will pick it up, even if you didn't want to learn it. Even if you're like, I have no desire to learn Spanish, but I forced you into that environment and you were doing the homework and you were there at the lessons, you would be learning it even if you didn't want to. So now in this case, sometimes it's going to feel like nothing's changing, but just remind yourself you're showing up and you're putting in the work, whether it's half an hour, whether it's listening to my lives every week, whether it's working with your coach, whatever. It's doing coursework, doing journaling, whatever it is that you're doing that's moving you in the direction of food freedom. Just keep reminding yourself that you are doing the work, and it would be unreasonable for you to expect that you wouldn't succeed. And on that note, that's when to commit even harder. It's when things get hard that we say, right, can I do a little bit more journaling? What do I need to do? Can I reach out to that coach? Can I get back on the horse quickly? What do I need to do? It's like when there are dips in the market, that's when we need to be investing. That's when we wish we'd been buying, is when everybody else is panic selling, right? It's the same with this. Just when everybody else would run and leave and go, no, I can't bear it anymore, I'm never going to make it. That's when we need to be grounding ourselves and saying, nope, I'm doing so much work, it would be unreasonable to expect that I wouldn't succeed. And maybe if I've got a little bit more energy, I'll just do a little bit more. Maybe I can do 5 minutes more of Spanish this week. Awesome, right? Because you'll just get there a little bit faster. It's not a race, but it's true. So the results will come in time. It's guaranteed. Even if you didn't want to learn this, if you started watching all my videos like on repeat, although God forbid you should do that, but if you did, you'd start to get the point you would be thinking in the way that I think. You'd be learning these lessons on repeat. You'd be thinking the thoughts that I'm programmed into myself because I repeat them so often in these videos. And you wouldn't not be able to learn the language of food freedom if you did it enough. And then the last most powerful thing to remember is that the only way to truly fail anything at all, let alone this food freedom journey of yours, is to give up. Is to go, that didn't work. And just, oh, well, I'll just, be a binge eater for the rest of my life. I'll just have to accept this compulsion. You don't have to accept it. This isn't like, again, sorry, AA, I keep dragging you through the mud here, but, this idea that once an addict, always an addict, it's just not true. I see people who've struggled with chocolate for decades, always feeling like if they had one piece, they'd eat the whole bar. Get to a place where not only can they just have one or two pieces, feel delightfully satisfied and put it down and not think about it again, but that they can have chocolate in their house, they can have crisps, they can have cake, they can be around buffets and not feel at all out of control. They just dish up what they feel like and stop. And it's easy. And I say this as somebody who knows. I've been there, I've been in the bingey, and I've been at a buffet where it's been easy and relaxed and joyful. And I hope I continue to go to many more. So, but, it took so much relentlessness and resilience to go, not only my journey, but I see it in my clients as well. And that's, the reason that I generally work with people for a minimum of 4 months, because this journey's hard. You're going to make mistakes. But the only way to truly fail is to give up. Really. And if you're sitting there thinking, but Helen, maybe of your clients or maybe for you, but I don't think this is going to work for me, go back to the step before. You can't fail to learn this so long as you show up and do the work. It might just take longer for some people. I get it. But the reality is, if you're doing the exercises, skills and drills, homework, journaling, all the things, over time, you will learn and your brain will rewire. And it's just the way it is. And the only way that you couldn't reach freedom, however you define it, is if you give up and you tell yourself a story about how it's not going to work for you. So that's why I've given you new stories to remind yourself today, so you can get through those difficult times, so you can ensure that even if you have a bad day or a weekend or a week, it's been horror, you never give up. You're persistent and resilient, and you just keep on going. Like I was going to call this one Tub Thumping from Chumbawamba. Remember that song? I get knocked down, but I get up again. Yes, you're going to have to get up again many times. And now that you know that it's coming and you're armed with mindset shifts to move to, you want to write these down, have them across your wall, so that when you have a hard day, you keep coming back and just keep thinking, but I'm doing the work. It'd be unreasonable to expect that I wouldn't succeed. Put your pebbles in the jar. So you look at the jar and you go, well, I've already done all of that. My brain is rewiring, even if today I had a bad day. That's all it was. Or I've just overeaten a little bit. It's not the end of the world. Let's live and learn. So here's to continuing to fail repeatedly, fail forward, fail upward. Let's learn from it. Let's fail every time a little more intelligently. Let's get off the self-flagellation horse and move into the what next, what now, what can I learn, how can I improve? Let's get into the mastery. Act as if you are literally wanting to master a language or master a sport or master anything. You would have to make mistakes, embrace them, learn from them, move onwards. And if you don't know how to learn from them, get a coach. Get a coach who's specialized in food freedom. I am one. There are many, thank God, many other wonderful coaches out there if you don't resonate with me. So speaking of which, if you enjoyed this training today, I would love you to consider having a look at the program I'm about to release. So on Monday, this coming Monday, the 19th, next Monday, 19th of May, where are we? I will be releasing the Food Freedom Foundation's course. So it is an online course. We're just doing a soft launch this coming Monday. We'll be doing a hard launch, whatever that means, on the 2nd of June. But if you'd like to join before the 2nd of June, get in early, be one of the early birds. You're going to get loads of personal support and feedback from me as you work through the modules and do the homework. It's designed to be done over a period of 4 months, about 17 weeks, with a little break in between, because rest is best. We've got to give our brains a little chance to relax and rejuvenate on this journey of learning, and where you will be implementing all of the things that I teach in a really strategic manner. So I used to work with people struggling with bulimia, and I built out a 12-week course. It was so successful for those who did the work. So without ever meeting me, I had people reaching out to me who were experiencing freedom from their compulsion as severe and as hard to change as binging and purging. And the people who got the best results from that course were the people who did the work. So I can see in the back end who's completing the videos, who's completing the worksheets, and who's not. And so I used what I learned from that, and I've now taken that to build a course that would be not accessible. What's the right word? That would help anybody who's struggling with compulsive overeating. And so I use so much of what I've learned from working with that. And I've brought a bunch of new things in, and I've made the course over 17 weeks, 4 months, so that you can just plod through them one skill at a time, 1 week at a time, learning one new thing, practicing repeatedly one new thing, a bit like learning the language. And in 4 months, if you were to dive in, the momentum and the change that you would experience is just phenomenal. It'll blow your hair back. I'm not saying you'd be free forever after 4 months, especially if you've been struggling for decades. But I have no doubt we'll be laying the foundations, the groundwork. So long as you just keep practicing those skills repeatedly, you'll smash through all of that compulsion and in time feel deeply and truly free around food, and hopefully absolutely bloody awesome in your body too, as a side benefit. So if you're interested in that, you can go to the website foodfreedomfoundations.com. I've got a little email link that you can let me know that you're interested, and I can reach out to you as soon as the course drops. There will be a discount, 50% off for anybody who joins before the 2nd of June. Or just drop whatever comment or get hold of me with a pigeon, and I'll make sure to let you know as soon as the course is available and live. I can't wait to share it with you. I can't wait to release it. And that bunch of slides that I've done today was really just one of the videos. I was just putting together a video about how to handle slip-ups and relapses. And I thought, well, while I'm doing that, I'll quickly make it available for YouTube Live. So if you enjoyed a bit of that and you enjoyed the slideshow, even though it was a bit clumsy and I hadn't had a chance to practice it, then that's what's in store inside of the Food Freedom Foundations course. All right, everybody. Wow, 42 minutes in. That was not the 15-minute quick fix that I was hoping for. If you got value from that, please smash that like button, share it with somebody who needs to hear it, and subscribe if you haven't already, so that you can make sure you know when I'm going live. Well, hit that notification button if you want to know when I'm going live every Monday. Wow, I'll see you next Monday. Next Monday, I think we're going to be talking about the 5 principles of success that I literally live by. So if you know how to prevent a slip up from turning into a binge, next Monday, we're going to take it another step forward. And I'm just going to quickly run you through my 5 success principles that guarantee that should you adopt the mindset and these principles and live by them, you'll be able to get success in anything that you put your mind to, but most specifically this challenging food freedom journey as we break out of these compulsions around food into something totally new. Have a beautiful week further, everybody. Love you lots like jelly tots. And I'll see you next Monday live on YouTube at 1 p.m. UK time. Hopefully I won't be running late next time. Okay, bye.